Do you want to live more sustainably but aren't sure where to start or how it fits in with your everyday living? The ReNewy Living Podcast simplifies sustainability so you can feel confident to take small, meaningful actions that fit into your lifestyle. Based on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people in Newcastle, Australia, you'll learn how to live lighter on our planet through practical ideas, stories from like-minded people, and examples of businesses doing great things. With an open heart and mind, join me, Marty Lee, as we explore how to consume less, build stronger community connections, and thrive in your neighbourhood, wherever you call home. Welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Hello, my name's Marty Lee, and welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Decluttering your home is tough enough, right? Finding the time, energy, headspace when you're feeling your best is a challenge on its own. But what happens when the responsibility shifts? When a loved one no longer needs their belongings and suddenly it's up to you to sort through it all? In this episode, I'm chatting with ReNewy Living Community member Rowena from the Central Coast of New South Wales. She recently navigated the emotional and practical challenges of clearing her dad's estate. Rowena's experience offers valuable insights into steps you can take today to make things easier for yourself and your loved ones in the future. Let's hear her story. Welcome, Rowena.
Thanks, Marty.
So let's start with your story. How did you get to that point where you needed to declutter your dad's place?
My situation is that my dad passed away at the end of 2023, and he had been unwell for a number of months leading up to that. So there was the process of how to sort through some things while he was still alive, have conversations with him before he passed, and then sorting through his house and personal possessions after he passed away. Also, the backstory for me is that my parents were separated and my brother has an intellectual disability. So the sole responsibility for doing everything and making those decisions really fell on me.
Yeah, gee, that's really hard when you do have family, but your parents are separated. So the onus of responsibility is up to you. What happened in that time when your dad was still with you and you started to go through the asking and the conversations with your dad?
So my dad went into hospital in the early August, and it was looking like he might have come home around October, but then things shifted quite quickly, and really the only alternative for him was to go into aged care or to look at having a family member live with him, but his house wasn't really appropriate. So I suppose in that period of time, there was some conversations that we were able to have around some real practical things. So things in the pantry, household items, cleaning items. So things like that, I was able to start, I guess, kind of moving on. But what became a bit more tricky was the concept of knowing that dad wasn't going to be coming home to the house. So there would have to be that clearing out process, but also knowing that he was very unwell and not knowing how long we would have him for. There was that balance of having conversations about being able to ask questions about specific items, so items that might have financial value or sentimental value, what dad would like done with them. But I guess having that first foot in the door to be able to start some processes. But also that really challenging issue of even when knowing dad wasn't going to come home, just not wanting to go through any personal items because he was still alive, but that overwhelming burden of knowing that the time is coming soon where this is going to have to happen anyway, but feeling like it's not appropriate to start that process while he was still there.
And while he was still with you, you've got his needs to look after first and foremost, as well as your own needs as well. You don't live or you didn't live near your dad, you're working full time as well. And then suddenly you've got that responsibility as well as stuff. So thank you for sharing your story. This is a really important story to share with everybody. But after your dad's passing, then what happened? How did you actually get started with stuff and clearing out?
So my dad passed at the end of November. So the preparation and planning for the funeral was the next automatic quick step. So I suppose the actual sorting of the household just got put on hold. Basically, his house was just shut up and left. And I think for me, physically, mentally, emotionally, after everything that had happened, needed to take a bit of time and allow for that Christmas holiday period to pass. So it really wasn't until into the January of 2024 where I started to think, how am I going to do this? Because it just appeared to be so overwhelming, knowing that I lived an hour away from my dad's house. I worked full time and he had a fully furnished, full household. So the steps that I started to think about in order to tackle it was, for me, not feeling pushed by anyone, so wanting to do things in my own time. Thankfully, financially, there weren't any pressures that meant there was a time frame where things had to be complete. And I could understand for a lot of people that would be a huge challenge if they had to financially be out of a residence or nursing home or sell a property and sort through things quickly. So for me, I decided that I would focus on one room at a time. I would start with areas of the house that were less emotional. So for me, that was the kitchen, so pantry, kitchen, and laundry, linen cupboard, and then start moving on to more personal kind of items such as books and trinkets and
Clothes?
clothes I left towards the end, even though I knew that I wasn't going to be keeping them. That felt a bit harder to sort through, but yeah, so it was room by room and starting from a less emotional space, progressing to the more personal areas.
It sounds like you've started with the easiest thing, because to declutter, regardless of your situation, it's always best to start with the easiest, the less emotional. And I think that's what it sounds like you've done.
Yes.
But that's your instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, what I had quite a few friends offering to come and sort through things, but I knew that I would feel overwhelmed by that. So I wanted to do it in my own time. I allowed certain people at various times to assist, but what I did was, in going through each room, I created a space in another area of the house, and I created piles of things that were rubbish that could be thrown out, things that were put in a pile that I called the garage sale pile. And I just, my thought process around that was, whether it's to sell or whether it's to give away, I would rather somebody else make use of something than it go into rubbish or landfill. And people have all different hobbies and certain things that they would use things for. So I thought I'd rather put it in that pile and throw it away after a garage sale or give it away than throw it away beforehand and create more landfill. So there was the garage sale pile. Then there was the pile of, is this something I definitely want to keep? And then another pile of, is this something that maybe I want to keep? Not sure, perhaps we'll sort through at a later stage.
And how did you go with going through all those piles? So the rubbish pile was very clear. That was going in the bin.
Yes.
How did you go with the garage sale or giveaway pile?
So I suppose there were different categories. When it came to just general household items, thankfully my dad wasn't an overly sentimental person who had a lot of family heirlooms. So going through items, a lot of the things for me, I was able to decide, is this something that I would want to keep or my family would like to keep, or is there someone else in my family who would like this? So whether it was something from my dad's parents previously, or on a more practical sense, some of dad's clothing items that were really good quality, asking some of dad's friends or family members whether they wanted to have those items. So they did take some of them. Otherwise, the garage sale pile was just putting something there and then having the opportunity to revisit it, which I did weeks down the track. So before the actual garage sale, I went back through things. And there were a few things at the time that I thought, I don't know if I want this, but I feel a bit anxious about just letting it go. So I would rather make that decision to hold on to it and deal with that later.
That's a really good rule that you made for yourself. If it's an uncertainty, just hold on to it until you know when you're ready.
Yes. So by the end of that process, the garage itself was full. I'd previously sorted through the garage and made space. So everything that got moved to the garage was there ready for the garage sale.
And how did that go? Because I have heard that when people have garage sales after an estate clearing, it can be very difficult. But how did it feel for you?
So leading up to it, I felt really good. I felt that I'd sorted through things in my own time and was making the decision that was right for my dad, for me, for my family. I had a number of family members and friends who offered to assist at the garage sale. Leading up to the garage sale, I had quite a few people, probably of the older generation, say to me, I don't know why you're doing a garage sale. I don't think people do them anymore. I don't know if anyone will turn up. So I started really second guessing my decisions. So what I decided to do was to advertise the garage sale around the area by poster, but also online on social media garage sale sites. And I specifically put down that it was a deceased estate. After I did that, and I put some photos up. After I did that, I had so many people emailing me in advance, asking for certain items from the photos, asking if they could come early. And that started to overwhelm me.
Yeah, it sounded like it really escalated and it's just starting to get a little bit too much.
Yes. And so leading up to the garage sale, I had a plan. I'd done research on items that were probably financially valuable. My dad did like to collect certain things. So I had done my research on what I thought was a reasonable price to be selling some of those more expensive items at a garage sale, but making sure that I also moved them along. So it was that balance of researching of prices and also a plan of what would happen on the day, who would help me set up, how things would be set up. The night before it rained, so I wasn't able to set up the way that I intended, but I still thought my plan for the actual garage sale day was quite secure. The whole experience was overwhelming, and I would have to say I don't want to have to go through that process again. What I found is that people turned up while my brother and I were setting up. So an hour beforehand, even though I said won't be available until 9 a.m. People were turning up. They just came into the garage. They started going through things. They started asking questions. How much is this? They started stockpiling things. So I now realize that there are professionals out there who go to deceased estate garage sales. And I understand that's
their job.
That's their job. I had some really unusual stories in that people stole things. I had people haggling for certain kitchen items that were grouped like a crockery set for $5 and then trying to haggle it for 50 cents, having arguments with people who were helping me around I guess, trying to play
each of them off each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
Asking them how much, then asking me how much. And so not having time to put prices on everything. On the flip side, there were some real positives. The positives were, I think, because it was advertised as a deceased estate. So my dad had a huge collection of books, cookbooks, travel books. We're talking bookcases and bookcases. He had a huge collection of Ladro porcelain, had a huge collection of CDs and DVDs. So I was really worried that at the end of the garage sale, we might be left with a whole pile of kitchenware, books, CDs, DVDs. And then I'd be like, what am I doing with these things now? But thankfully, we had a few people who came along that, like, one person cleared out all of the cookbooks, one person cleared out all of the travel books, one person took a huge amount of CDs. So as much as it was a emotionally stressful process, I was able to move along a lot of items. And in retrospect, when I was thinking about what was the purpose of the garage sale, that's what I really had to think about. It wasn't about making money. It was about moving along items that otherwise what would I have done with? I would have had to take carloads and carloads and carloads to Lifeline or Vinnie's or other markets. Also, some positives is I was contacted by some charities saying if there were any leftover items, they'd be willing to come and pick them up. So there was the Guinea Pig Charity of New South Wales who came and collected small items for their annual sale.
I've never heard of the Guinea Pig Charity.
I hadn't either.
So you're quite serious about that?
Yes.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
So then on the flip side, that was positive because they were then able to take those items and when they do their annual fundraiser, sell those items on.
Yeah. Wow. So a garage sale is big. It was great how that you had to look at your purpose of what is the reason why I'm holding this garage sale. Obviously very stressful in the lead up and on the day. Would you actually recommend people in that kind of situation like yours to do a garage sale, even though the purpose is to clear out stuff and it was quite stressful?
I would say yes, but some tips that I would have for that is have as many people assisting you with the garage sale on the actual day. Have items spread out in separate areas of maybe household items, gardening items, memorabilia, clothing, whatever the categories might be. And if there are certain items that you know you want to get money for, have a price tag or a sticker on them and then be prepared to negotiate from there. I also put items in the garage sale where I thought, I don't know if anyone would want this. Potentially, I think this should go in the bin. But it was really positive because a lot of those items I gave away to people. So one of the examples was I said, there's all these old Tupperware and plastic containers and maybe no one would want to buy them. But if someone is into gardening or collecting and storing shells or has reptiles and needs to keep their animals' food in plastic containers, then there they are and they can have them for free. So there were a number of situations like that as well that also made me feel good that all these things were being reused and not just thrown in the bin.
So you've talked about so far your garage sale or gifting kind of items, your chuck out items, and then you've got those two other piles which are your to keep items. How do you decide whether that's a keep item for you?
I had to think about what is the space that I have in my house. So physically, how much room do I have to bring more things into my house? And balancing, what did my dad think about this, or do I like this item? What was really great for me is I was able to have conversations with my dad leading up to that around certain pieces of artwork or memorabilia, horse racing memorabilia, things that my dad was really interested in. where to me, I didn't necessarily have the same interest or I didn't value the artwork, but I knew that it meant something to my dad. And by having that conversation with him, he was able to say, if you don't keep that, that's completely fine. Or how about you offer that painting to the owners of the syndicate from the one of the horses that my dad part owned. So I was able to make some of those decisions based on those conversations. But coming back to working out what would I keep based on how much space do I have, whether it's something that I think I enjoy looking at. So is it something that I appreciate? There are some things that I have kept, and that's purely around a sentimental factor, but it has come down to size. For some of the items that I was not able to keep because I just thought, I don't like it, I don't need it, I'm never going to use it, it's going to take up too much space, I took photos of. And so I feel that by being able to look at the photo of the item, even though I don't have it anymore, there's still that small connection that I think has eased some of my emotional guilt around that.
That's a beautiful way of doing it. And a photo, whether it's digital or you've printed it out, doesn't take up much space. But on saying that, did your dad have photos and photo albums?
Yes.
As you responded with a bit of a chuckle.
Yes. So that was one thing that I was actually really dreading in the process, because my dad loved traveling, loved taking photos, and he would print out his photos. So my dad actually had in his garage walls and walls of photo albums full of photos. And so he would sit down and look through those albums. He enjoyed it. Whereas myself, my mum, other people would say, why are you printing out more photos? What do you do with them? My dad actually got enjoyment from that. So that was an area that I've really struggled with. And I also have found it very emotional going through photos, looking at those photos. So what I did was I quickly went through all of those albums at the time of preparing my dad's funeral to be able to get some photos to share at the funeral. And I knew that that process was very difficult. So what I've actually done is I've stored all of those albums in my garage, and those albums are on to sort through at a later stage.
Photos and paperwork, they're usually those things that take up the most amount of time. They've got the emotional attachment to it, and they come with a lot of memories. I've started to do that myself as part of that Swedish death cleaning, just to say, is this photo relevant to us right now, and what relevance will it bring to people in the future? And landscape photos are one of those ones where they are very irrelevant to the next generation. That's only got a meaning for us. But even still for us, because just in my generation, grew up with printed photos in photo albums, and they take up a lot of space. They're very bulky. And I've started to take out the photos from the photo albums and store them in boxes, like small photo boxes instead. And in terms of space saving, that's good, but I know what you mean in terms of it takes so much time to go through all the photos. So that was a really hard thing, photos.
Yes. So I haven't quite got through that yet. So that was on my Christmas holiday for this year to-do list, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But they are in a wardrobe in my garage, and at some stage that will be the next the next thing.
How long did it take, the process, for you to start clearing out your dad's estate to feeling like it's done and finished?
So to actually go through the house and all of the items and know that there was a general decision on what I was going to do with them or what pile they were going to be put in, and took from mid-January 2024, and the garage sale occurred in early July 2024. So for me, it was pretty much every weekend for a period of 5 months of going to my dad's house to sort through things and also to break that up, clean at the same time and work out what might need to be done at the house. And then after the garage sale, it was another couple of months of getting some things done at the house. And it was actually on the anniversary of my dad's passing, which was also his birthday, his house settled, the sale of his home settled. So realistically, 12 months. Another thing that I didn't mention before was through the process of all of the sorting and organising what was happening for the garage sale, the larger items like furniture, I was putting on Facebook to sell or give away. And that was something that I would really encourage because it seemed like bigger items didn't seem to sell at garage sales. So doing that one item at a time really, I think, allowed a lot less stress. It mentally created space throughout the process. So that's definitely a tip that I would suggest if you're having to clear out a whole house.
From your experience, what have you learned about your own stuff and your own lifestyle?
Well, Marty, what I've learned is I think it's really important to go through everything of mine at certain periods of time. So I'd say that there's things like your clothes, your wardrobe, like probably going through at least once a season, maybe once a year. And then things like that you would hold on to, school books, photographs, paperwork, you actually really should go through throughout your lifetime and sort through yourself. And probably every 5 to 10 years, you should re-go through everything that you own. Because there's so many things that we have, that we hold on to, that we put in a cupboard, that when we look at it another time, it no longer has the same meaning. And we might realize that it's not necessary to hold on to that. And it actually frees you mentally, frees you physically, the space around you. I definitely know for me that a working environment and a living environment, the less cluttered and knowing what I have and have been through in relation to sorting through and clearing through my life has an impact on my mental health and well-being. And it's something that I have done myself, but I continue to do and see the value in doing even more so now.
In one way, it's great that you've had that experience in order to see how you can live your own life within the surroundings that you love, that make you feel happy and that you feel make you feel more wholesome in your life, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Rowena.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the ReNewy Living Podcast. I hope you're feeling more confident about taking a localised and actionable approach to living sustainably. If this episode has inspired you to take simple action, please follow the ReNewy Living Podcast so you can catch every episode. We'd love it if you could share this episode with your friends. It's a great way to spread the word and help more people join the conversation about living sustainably. You can even send me an email with the episode that really made it for you. Hearing your positive actions for change helps me understand how these stories work within our shared communities. Head over to my website, renewyliving.com.au, for the show notes and blog posts from this episode. I look forward to sharing more stories from the people of Newcastle as we delve into our community's diverse social and environmental practices for positive planetary change from a localised perspective.